Right, welcome to the video. So the Corolla T-Sport that I had for 2 years is actually the first video we ever made. It's gone. I've sold it. So we made a lot of awesome memories with it. It was a great car. Honestly, I can't fault it. I just wanted something different, really. So let's not mess about. Here's a new whip. So here we are in my 2006 Proton Jumbuck. Fires right up. Right, so as I said, this is a 2006 Proton Jumbuck, otherwise known in some countries, I think mainly the Asian countries, as the Proton Arena. So it's a bit of an oddball one, really. I know a lot of Asian countries got them, and Australia and the UK also got them. But if we just sort of back up a bit and go through the history, well, what I know of the history in terms of Proton as a company. So as far as I know, they started manufacturing cars in Malaysia in the 80s, and they were basically rebadged Mitsubishis to begin with, and then as time progressed, they sort of got a little bit more independent and started manufacturing their own bits and bobs. So they started off as basically a Mitsubishi, but they still retained a lot of Mitsubishi parts throughout the different models that they manufactured. So for instance, this one, the Proton Jumbuck, which is actually sort of quite closely related to the Proton Wira, as far as I understand. It uses a Mitsubishi engine. It's the 1.5 single cam, which I believe is the 4G15. Yeah, so that's a Mitsubishi derived engine, and I believe all of them, every single one of the Protons manufactured since the 80s. Well, maybe not newest. I don't know enough, to be honest, to go through the entire history, but I know that the majority of them do utilize Mitsubishi engines. But they also utilize other components, not just engines. So the chassis, for instance, in this, it's very closely related to a Mitsubishi Lancer. Of course, not the rear end, because being a pickup truck or a ute, it uses leaf springs in the back. And as far as I'm aware, no other Proton does. But from there forward, in terms of the suspension uprights and stuff, as far as I'm aware, it's basically Lancer stuff. I know that you can sort of chop and change the bits to sort of Lancer parts if you wish. So this one in particular, I've had it for a couple of months now. It's a 2006, which is the newest that I've seen in this country, but I know in Australia and probably the Asian countries as well, including Malaysia, they were manufactured at least up until 2010, I believe. I think I've seen 2010 models for sale in Australia, but I've never seen one that new here. So yeah, this one's a 2006. It's the GL model, which is basically the bog standard one. So it's base trim. It doesn't have air conditioning. It's got wind-up windows. There's sort of no frills. It's basically just a commercial work truck. So when I got this one, it had 42,000 miles on the clock, and it has a full service history. So what I found a lot with these, I don't know if this is true for other countries as well, but in England at least, a lot of them are quite low mileage, and I'm not sure why that is, being a commercial vehicle, well, a vehicle that can be used for that sort of thing. They usually have moon miles on them. Like if you look at, I don't know, Ford Transits or something, they've always got loads of miles on them because people use them for work. So that's sort of an interesting observation. But yeah, this is a fairly low mileage example, but you probably wouldn't think it just looking at the outside. There's sort of problematic areas in terms of the bodywork, in terms of rust, mainly the rear sills. That's the only really problem area on this one, at least. But I sort of decided when I started looking for one that I wanted one that was sort of unwelded and it's just bog standard, it hasn't been touched. And the reason for that is because a lot of the UK models, a lot of UK cars in general, as they start to get a little bit rusty, they start to fail MOTs, and then a lot of people will have them welded at the MOT station, and it's often a bit of a bodge. I wanted one, ideally, that had never been welded before, that way I could get it done properly. So on the whole, as I said, I've had it for 2 months. It's been really good. It's been super reliable. Given that it only has that 1.5 litre single cam, it's good on fuel. Most of my driving is like this, sort of dawdling along at about 40-30 miles an hour on my way to and from work really, and a lot of inner city driving. So for that, it's absolutely fantastic. Since I've had it, I've put some new wheels and tyres on it, just some steel wheels. These actually came off of a Mini, the ones that are on here now. Yeah, so as often happens with vehicles with steel wheels, they get super rusty. So this had super rusty steelies. I replaced them with some which already had some tyres on them for a damn good deal from Facebook Marketplace, so that was great. And the only issue I've had so far, within, I don't know, I've done sort of 1,000 miles, maybe a little bit more, was that the clutch lever's leaking. I managed to find somebody who was breaking a Jumbuck on eBay, and they sold me the slate for reasonable money because it had very clearly like been replaced on that vehicle recently. So I nabbed that, which was awesome. I actually ordered one before that and it ended up being the wrong one, and I think that might be kind of a common thing with these, just struggling to track down the right parts sometimes, maybe a thing, but we'll see. From what I've seen through the forums and stuff, parts availability is all good. A lot of them do suffer from pretty savage rust, but this one really isn't too bad. There's a little bit on each sill, which as far as I'm aware is only the outer sill, but we won't know until we cut it open. And then there's a little bit on the rear quarter, but other than that it's fine. Something like this, it kind of lends itself to sort of a lifestyle really, doesn't it? So I see, like, I can get my bike in and out the back, no problem. I can get motorbikes in the back, which is so cool for a vehicle this small, I think. And then there's loads of opportunity to do other stuff, like stick a canopy on the back, a bed in the truck bed, and then go camping. I just think there's a lot of potential with this. And when I found out, to be honest, what sold me on these was the fact that the Mitsubishi parts are so interchangeable. So, and you can, in terms of like aesthetic mods and stuff, you can put like Evo parts on them, Lancer parts, and I just thought that was awesome because, let's be honest here, this has one of the ugliest front ends I think I've ever seen on a ute or a pickup truck. It really is ugly. So I think that's probably something to do with the agreement that Mitsubishi and Proton had as sort of a coalition. Make sure the Protons are ugly, so there's no competition with the actual Mitsubishis. What you do notice is that it does feel quite like a commercial vehicle, really. It feels bare bones. It feels a lot older than it is. So this one's 2006, as I mentioned, but it feels older than that. And the reason it feels older than that is because most of the parts utilised from sort of the Mitsubishi parts catalogue, they're from old designs. Like really old designs, like early 90s stuff, and this is like almost 20 years after that. So that kind of blows my mind. Also blows my mind that they made this, as far as I'm aware, until 2010. Yeah, I'm surprised that it was allowed in terms of sort of crash safety and stuff like that. But yeah, here we are. I've never had like a van or like a ute before, and I'm just loving the practicality of it. You can just get so much stuff in the back, and it's just super practical. If you're moving house, boom. If you've got this thing, you're sorted. Get loads of stuff in the back. I do like the way it looks, even though I've argued that the front end is super ugly. I do think it has a lot of potential as well. I think especially with that sort of, well, it's not even aftermarket support, but the sort of Mitsubishi market support. It's so cool, you've got a lot of choices there. Especially even Proton stuff, you can fit parts from the Dacia GTI, Lancer as mentioned, then obviously Evo bits. Generally when I buy a vehicle, I sort of buy it based on its potential. I don't like the way it looks standard, but I know that with a little bit of work, you can have something that's super unique that nobody has, and these are super rare anyway. So it's quite rare that I've been driving it, like I said, for just over 1,000 miles. I've never seen another one on the road. I'm not sure exactly how many are on the roads in the UK, but it's certainly not many, because you just don't see them. And it does, I think, when you drive past somebody who's like in a trade or something driving a Transit, they sort of look at it like, oh cool, what's that? Because we don't really have vehicles like this. I mean, there's the old school VW Caddy, and then I know like the Subaru Brat or something, but they're super rare. And stuff like this just isn't really used. People either go for a van or they go for a full-size pickup truck, like what we would call a full-size pickup truck in the UK, which would be like, I don't know, a Hilux or something. We don't have massive trucks like you do in the States. But as far as I'm aware, these never made it to the States, or Protons in general, which is a shame really. But you know, I live in the UK, so I get to have one, so that's cool. So if we get down to it a bit, in terms of what I want to do with it, I'm just enjoying it, and I like how practical it is, as I said. I'd love to go camping with it. I'd love to buy a canopy for the back and chuck a bed in. I love being able to ferry mine and my mates' bikes around. May end up chucking the motorbike in the back, as sort of a sport vehicle, and then doing like a really big road trip. Because it is such low miles, this one, it's generally super reliable from what I've noticed, and generally pretty clean underneath and stuff. So in terms of future plans, I've kind of just got a two-pronged approach. Boom, make it super reliable, and really what that's going to consist of is just parts changing at this stage and servicing. And then after that, or sort of within that, make it look cool as well. I think we will lower it a bit. And then sort of choose bits out of the Mitsubishi parts bin to make it look cool. So I'm really excited. I love this thing. I've only had it for a couple of months and it's been awesome. The interior can do with some love. I don't think anyone is a fan of grey plastic interiors, and if you are, there's probably something a bit wrong with you. So there's lots of areas for improvement, which is awesome, because that's what I like with the car. I like a car that's a good base, they can do cool things too. So like, if you check out the aftermarket support for these and what people have done, it's pretty mad. I know there's a guy in Australia who built, I can't remember what he named it, but anyway, he built a Jumbuck just like this one, and he did so much work to it, it's crazy. So it ended up with a 4G63 in it, and it ended up with the rear diff as well, and it was all-wheel drive. So good. Had like Evo body panels as well. It's absolutely legit. And if you dig a little bit, you can see that quite a lot of people have made these into absolute weapons. I don't see myself going down that route just because of the sheer cost of it. You may as well just buy an Evo 1, 2 or 3. In terms of engine swaps anyway, I think this thing would benefit from something like a good front wheel drive naturally aspirated engine. So I don't know if I mentioned that, these are obviously front wheel drive. Well, I don't know if that's obvious or not, but they're front wheel drive. So in the back it's literally just a beam with 2 leaves on it. It's pretty simple. So yeah, I imagine this thing would really sing with something like a K20 in it if sort of money wasn't really an option. In terms of the 1.5 litre that is in this, it's really not bad. I mean, it does not like to rev being a single cam, but you don't really need it to. The way it sort of delivers power is perfectly fine for getting around town. It's not problematic at all. It's quite happy just sort of singing about 2,000-3,000 RPM. You don't really need to wring its neck unless you're on the motorway or something. And even then, it's really not awful. I think it cruises at 70 at about 3 grand. So really what you would expect from a little 4-cylinder car like this. It doesn't demand a lot from you, you just cruise about. I thought it would feel a lot older and sort of difficult to daily drive. A little bit sort of more cumbersome. on the day-to-day stuff. It's really not. It feels modern enough. It doesn't feel as modern as the Corolla did, which is hilarious because the Corolla's like 4 years older than this. But yeah, it's perfectly usable daily. It's got good heaters. This one, like I said, being a GL, doesn't have air conditioning. I believe the GLS came with air conditioning and electric windows, but I didn't want one of those because they come with these like really hideous body kits that seem to just trap loads of rust. But yeah, anyway, they're also super hard to find, so I basically just had to take what I could get. This one came up 3 hours away for sort of reasonable money, 42,000 miles on the clock with a full service history, so I copped it. One thing that is worth mentioning, so far just looking for stuff to buy for this thing in terms of service parts, they're so cheap. So you can get like front discs and pads, like Paget discs, you know, like the usual, and then just some OEM style replacement pads for like less than 30 quid. And that is just absolutely baffling to me because everything else I've had has been considerably more expensive than that. The overview of it is, this is a new project. I like it, it's sick. I forgot to mention actually, this thing actually handles surprisingly well. I mean, it's got a beam axle in the back, so it's never going to be that great. But you can tell because of the load capacity that it has, it's pretty stiff, so it corners pretty flat. I think the low speed stuff is okay, but the higher speed stuff gets a little bit sketch with that rear axle, especially when it's like unloaded. But yeah, anyway, that's another tangent. So in terms of what's coming next, you'll just have to wait and see. We've got quite a few plans for a few bits and bobs to do, and we hope to just keep the ball rolling on the channel and the Jumbuck. So thanks for watching. We will catch you next time. Happens. That thing sliding around is annoying as fuck, isn't it? That squeak is annoying as well.